Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aspen Author Webinar Series. Today's topic is Write.law Level Up. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items I would like to review. The audio for this webcast is through your internet only, so please use a headset, earbuds, or listen to this presentation through your laptop or mobile speakers. And secondly, this is a one-way communication channel. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature. And now I will hand it over to Stacy to introduce today's presenter.
Hello, and welcome to
Oh, it looks like we lost Stacy. Let's give her just a second to come back on, everyone. Sorry, I'll just give us one moment. It looks like we're having a technical difficulty with Stacy's connection. So we'll get started in just a brief moment.
Hello.
You're back.
I guess I'm experiencing some serious technical difficulties. So I read, I spoke my entire introduction of Joe Regalia, and I don't think anyone heard it. So let me go back to that. Introducing Joe Regalia. He is a law professor, trainer, and attorney with a passion for legal writing, persuasion science, and technology. And before he co-founded Write.law, Joe graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan Law School. He clerked for the Ninth Circuit and worked as an associate at 3 AM Law 100 firms. Joe heads up Write.law's legal skills training team, and he's also a member of the faculty at the UNLV William S. Boyd School of Law. Joe regularly leads trainings for leading law firms, nonprofits, agencies, and organizations, including Fortune 500 companies, the Department of Justice, and federal and state courts. So without further ado, I introduce Joe Regalia and Write.law.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and welcome, everyone. Stacy made me sound much cooler than I am, but very excited to be here with you folks and get to chat a little bit about what we do at Write.law and how the sorts of e-learning that we develop might be able to benefit you and your students. So just a very quick aside, and Stacy really kind of already set this up. We're really fortunate, our team at Write.law, that we just get to work with tons of folks in the private sector, in the public sector, and in the law school space. Our story really did come from working with practitioners. We started some years ago, a group of us, law professors, trainers. We wanted to provide more resources for law students as they left their law schools and went into their practice. And so for a number of years, we partnered with law firms, government agencies, courts, and so on to try to bring really high quality e-learning and resources, especially in the legal writing space, to support folks as they're trying to get their feet under them in their jobs. What is really nice about that is because we spent so many years working with now hundreds of firms and tens of thousands, which is a crazy number to me, attorneys, judges, and other practitioners, we have an enormous amount of data about what our law students go and do in their jobs and what are the sort of legal writing and other core practice skills they need to thrive. And so we started working with law schools and professors to try to support them as much as possible to provide more and more targeted resources that might be able to benefit them, again, especially in the legal writing space, which I'm guessing we're all really interested in. Just a couple comments about how we put together our training, where it comes from, all that kind of good stuff, because this is really important to all of us at Write.law, myself as a law professor, but to our whole team. So one piece that's really important is we don't develop training based on one person's opinion. So to us, both to be valuable to the learner, which is always our main goal. How can we speak to the law student, the lawyer, so that they understand, they're bought in about the value of the training that we give them? But also just philosophically, we are again saying, hey, this is just one person's opinion about legal writing or research or whatever it may be. So we spend a lot of time vetting what we do with our internal research team, and then a wider bench of external reviewers. So that includes absolutely lots of law professors and LRW professors as we put together these special courses with Aspen. But all of our training is going through, all the modules that we provide is going through a whole lot of testing and vetting with folks to see, is this really valuable? Is this what, is going to be useful for folks on the ground, all that kind of good stuff. And that's really important to us. And the learners, the law students, the lawyers, they really respond to that quite a lot. That they're learning skills that we've, vetted with practitioners, with judges, with the different people that they're going to be working with. Most of what we do, our team does plenty of live training in the private and public sector. In fact, I just got out of teaching a huge, really, really fun legal writing program with the DOJ right before I get to come and hang out with you all. But the bulk of what we do is our e-learning. And we spend quite a lot of time on the instructional design side of things. And a lot of that is using analytics to figure out, especially what law students, and I'll put some labels out here, Gen Z law students and millennial law students, right? What are the formats that they prefer? What do they engage with the most? Because our goal above anything is to develop training that the learner wants to use. We have a pretty cool white paper out recently sharing some of the data that we put together and some of our partners have put together. And what we found again and again is that the more engaged the learner is, the better outcomes we get. And so that is, we actually see those changes in writing or other core skills based on how engaged the learner is. And so we're very big on micro-learning and making the training as interactive as possible. Right? The more we can put folks into the driver's seat, the better the results that we see. And so a couple of quick stats on the format of the training that we use. So you see 18% improved learning outcomes over classroom training alone. So that is by partnering with micro-learning, interactive modules like we put together. Can see those improvements for students. Up to 72% increased learning engagement. So this is compared not to, I'm sure you all wonderful professors in the classroom, but recording a class or a webinar or something like that. As we probably all learned during the pandemic, not the best way to get learning engagement. But you can't throw out all e-learning, all asynchronous learning with, the bathwater. The truth is, the sort of micro-learning that we do, the interactive micro-learning we do, actually gets tons of engagement. And we have, as I'll mention in a few minutes, we have thousands of law students that pay to use Write.law on their own, and they virtually always are renewing regularly, and that's because they are getting value, right? They're engaging with it. And then you'll see that 80% better knowledge retention. Again, that's the magic of incorporating lots of interactivity and making the lessons micro. So, right, these very small, bite-sized, actionable lessons. You'll see a little bit more stats. These are from our users. So when we track folks over time, whole separate issue in terms of privacy and all of that, if folks are interested. We do offer really great anonymity if that's important to students or professors. But quite often we want that data for the professor so they can actually see if students are working on things and progressing. But anyways, when we take in that data of folks using our courses for at least 3 months, we can see quite a bit of jump when they are using our grammar mechanics lessons in particular, which is one of the biggest ways that we can support you all. And then just another final point, and if anyone's interested in this white paper we recently released, happy to share it. But with Gen Z especially, the preference for learning visually and, simulation-based training, all that kind of good stuff over kind of reading or other formats alone is pretty marked. Lots of good research and papers out in this space. And so we are always really excited to try to make our training, again, as interactive as possible and as engaging as possible. And as I mentioned before, a lot of what we do is going to the law students, right? Or going to, on the practitioner side, the lawyers, and saying, what's not working? And some of that is on our end of looking at the modules themselves or the exercises or the practices, and looking at what lessons are people not completing, or which ones are they jumping out of early, and how can we increase that engagement? How can we get them to stick with their practice and their learning? Some of this is just pure surveys. Our feedback from law students is consistently and has never dropped in the last 2 years below 9 out of 10 overall. Similar feedback we get from practitioners, because to us, right, if the learners are engaging and finding the training valuable to us, that's really the gold standard. And as I mentioned before, we have law students from, I don't want to say every law school out there, but a good chunk of them. And we're not including in here like the schools we work with institutionally or the professors we work with in their classes. This is just individual law students that already use our resources. I had mentioned earlier kind of our approach, very bite-sized explainer videos. We have a full animation crew that makes our videos. And again, we are constantly tweaking those based on what the law students want, what the learners want. When we have videos that aren't doing well, they go into a queue for us to improve. And then the other key component for us is interactive practice, right? So we want to get students into the driver's seat of their learning as quickly as possible, because we know, frankly, that's where a lot of the learning is going to be with asynchronous stuff. You can only get folks to watch a video and pay attention for so long. And so the videos we use are usually going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. They're very discrete. So I want my students to go, learn about active voice and passive voice. Might be a 4-minute explainer video with, the 6 different ways to spot active voice or passive voice rather. And then jumping straight into practice. Because again, we want people to actually be doing. With the practice, we also try to use real examples from real filings as much as we can. We hear from learners all the time, from law students all the time. They love seeing what they're learning connected with real practice, right? They want to see what lawyers are doing, makes it much more concrete for them, and it also helps quite a lot with buy-in. So our partnership with Aspen is really exciting to us because we have spent the last year or so collecting data and information about how can we help law professors supplement what they're doing, the amazing work you all are doing in the classroom. And what we find biggest needs are things like grammar, mechanics, legal research, some other components of like analysis and all that kind of stuff. And what we find is just by preparing all these resources and making them super easy to deploy in the classroom, we can add quite a bit of value and not conflict or not interfere with what you're already doing, but just lots more ways to practice and flip the classroom that your students might not already have. And I want to make really clear at the outset, our mission is 100% to empower you all as law professors and your law students. It is not to replace the amazing work folks do in the classroom. I mean, we really think about our resources living in partnership with maybe reading materials or excellent titles from Aspen, which is the bundles. And another way to get that practice, another way to engage with the materials that your students, we know, right? We know our students love the audiovisual and the interactive practice. So just a couple quick mentions about how these resources work with the Aspen program. Basically have 3 courses of these interactive learning materials: the legal writing course, the legal research course, and then a combo if you want to deploy all the topics across legal writing and research. The main takeaways, and I'm going to jump into the platform in just a moment, but the main takeaways for legal writing is, again, all those grammar and mechanics, things from subject-verb agreement, active voice. We've basically collected through quite a bit of work in law schools and outside with practitioners. What are all of the common pitfalls in grammar mechanics that go wrong in legal writing, and have created those materials based on all of that data. The legal writing course does also include more advanced topics like, pre-act point headings, all that kind of good classic legal writing topics. And as we'll see in just a moment, you can kind of plug and play whatever topics are most useful for your classes, so you're not locked in having to use everything, of course. The legal research course is going to cover kind of from start to finish the research process, all those foundational concepts about, different types of research methods, search methods, citations, which is a really popular area, a primer on all the stages of a lawsuit. Again, kind of all that great foundational knowledge you want students to have. And then, of course, the combo course is access to all of these materials. So the partnership's really cool in that we basically made it so that you can provide these resources nearly for free to your students. And so the way it works is you're using an Aspen title. You can bundle it with one of these courses, and the entire bundle is then discounted. And so it comes out to be a very, very small nominal charge for the Write.law resources, because that discount comes off of everything, including the book. So we're really excited we've been able to work this out so that basically you can have access, your students can have access to all of these materials without having to spend very much. I mean, the truth is we really want to empower law students and give students access to these resources as much as we can. And so we're very excited we've been able to work out this program. And the way it works practically is you can see a couple bullet points here. You choose if you want one of the courses or kind of both bundled together. Students are going to get free access code and then a link. It's really easy to sign up, and then they'll have access, and they'll have access for much longer than your course. So you're also giving your students these resources that they might even be buying on their own, right? That they're not going to have to pay for now to practice their writing, practice their research, and so on. A couple of quick notes, and we're going to jump over to the platform. I'm going to show you some stuff in just a minute. And by the way, if folks have any questions, please don't hesitate to toss those in the chat. Happy to take a moment and answer questions at any point throughout here. We're here to be a resource for you all. But so a couple of quick comments about how does this come together? How do professors actually use this in the classroom to improve what they're delivering? So we've made it really easy. Once your students have hopped on to one of the courses or they have access to it, every single module, every single lesson, every practice has a unique URL. And we even have really cool cheat sheets that you can just pick whichever links you like and pop those into your syllabus, into your LMS, your Canvas, whatever it might be. And it's going to bring your students directly to that lesson that you want to flip the classroom, assign as homework, follow-up practice, whatever is helpful. We've had lots of professors, link lessons, write in feedback on a document when they're giving feedback that way, or in a conference. And so that, because every single lesson, every module, every practice has that unique URL, it's just super flexible, right? Y'all can use these resources anywhere that you would like with just a link. And as long as your students have originally gotten their code and they signed up one time, they're going to be able to immediately access any lesson that you link them. So first off, flipping the classroom. And so that is, again, just grabbing links. I mean, it takes 5 minutes to add links to your whole syllabus for all of your weeks. And you pop those links in, again, to your Canvas, to your syllabus, whatever it is. Students will be able to access those immediately. We also, there we go. We also see quite a few folks, and do I think, I don't have it here, who use our resources in other ways. So that includes in live classroom settings. We've got tons of simulations and practices that you can easily use as kind of pre-built group work based on whatever topic you're covering. So that's another popular way people use this. Another thing many folks do is assign an entire course or an entire chapter. So if you want everyone to work through all of the citation lessons, or you want, we have schools that, or professors that have folks work through the entire course. And we set it up so it's really easy to get certificates of completion for a whole course or any chapter, any topic, if that's how you want to run things. I will throw out there, we are able to support kind of full progress tracking and cohorts and all that kind of stuff. It does require one extra step, which is after you have adopted Write.law and the bundle, is just to let our team know that you want to do that. We just need to know who your students are, because the way it works with Aspen is they're just going to get that code. So we'll have no way to know which students are yours. But after we know who your students are, we can build that cohort, that classroom. You can have an admin role, so you can always see the progress and everything they're doing. So that's another cool feature that we rolled out a few months ago and we're excited about. Real quick, we have a question about foreign attorneys or non-native speakers. Yeah, so very, very popular for professors in LLM programs and with others who are who are non-native speakers to use our materials. So yes, we have quite a few lessons that are geared towards non-native speakers. And so two things. One, if you have a targeted group of people like that, happy to suggest kind of which chapters and which lessons are more geared towards those folks. But we actually support quite a few LLM programs. In fact, we have LLM programs that use Write.law exclusively for kind of all their course materials as the professors are working through the LRW classes. Okay, so I'm going to jump over real quick and just show you a little bit what the resources actually look like. Pretty important, right? So like I mentioned, we have these really cool cheat sheets that will list out every single topic, every single lesson on the platform, along with the links. So, as a professor, I know how tricky it can be if, you're working with whatever platform, right? It could be assigning things off of Westlaw or Lexis or whatever it is, to go find the lesson and go log in and how do I get my students there? You actually don't even need to sign on to the platform. Using that cheat sheet, you can just pick what topics, what modules you want to give students, and you have all the links at your fingertips. But what your students will see when they hop on is the course player like this. And all of the topics are broken down by chapters. And so you'll see the legal writing course is going to start with all those grammar and mechanics topics, comparatives, possessives, plurals, capitalization, commonly confused words, adjectives, noun-verb mix-ups, building simple sentence structures, clauses, phrases, prepositions, subject-verb agreement, sentence connections, parallel sentences, modifier problems, all the common punctuation issues. Again, I mean, this is quite a bit of work working with LRW professors, practitioners, et cetera, to figure out what are all of those mechanics and grammar things that we often don't have time to work through at length in our classrooms, or maybe we have some students that are really struggling, and you have all of these resources now to help them not only learn how to tackle each of these pitfalls, but also practice it. So I'll show you all a couple different ways that we do the interactive practice. One is this interactive document approach. And so I mentioned we do a lot of work on the interactives. We want to make things as practical and real as possible, and we want the students to be in the driver's seat as much as possible. So with this format, students get this kind of live, real document that was filed. It has a whole bunch of grammar problems in it that are covered in this section. And first, we encourage the students to read through and try to find those problems on their own. And then they can click Explore, and it's going to come up with all of these areas highlighted where there were all these mechanics, these grammar issues. And then they can zoom in and get this really tailored guidance about how you would fix that grammar issue, and all narrated, and really walk the student through it like we were meeting with them in a live conference or a live grading situation. But of course, giving them the ability to jump around at their own pace, rewatch things, dive in however they like. So that's one way we do trainings or the interactive piece. Another way we call our one-on-one teaching experience. And so with this approach, we try to have a conversation about whatever the topic is and then start weaving in practice. So we'll typically have lots of examples of that topic that the student can click through and use to really get a feel for how they learn this concept, and then we're going to get them into practice. We use some traditional kind of multiple choice, really just for initial review. These are always going to be hard, and what I mean by that is we don't do a lot of quizzing in these. It isn't just like, oh, do you remember what sentence or what subject-verb agreement is? We're really requiring folks to practice these skills, right? So for an example here, they have to figure out what is the correct rewrite. And then they're going to get broken down models explaining exactly what was wrong. Eventually, in pretty much all the practice, we are going to get folks into writing, rewriting, because that's, frankly, after we've done a few multiple choice, we try to keep it pretty limited. Students don't love sitting there and clicking through multiple choice stuff, so we try not to rely on that too much. We get them writing and rewriting snippets, and then looking at models that are going to break down what was going on, how it compares to what they wrote, and so on. So that's another popular way that we do interactives. We have a couple different other interactive formats on here, but those give you a good sense of the sorts of things that we try to do. The other thing I'll throw out there, obviously other than the interactives, or all of the explainer videos. So that's another key piece of the training. You can see these videos are very, very short. So we're looking at 1.5 minutes on comparatives. And again, that's because we see learners tuning out so quickly. And so we want to keep that in this sweet spot of, frankly, less than 5 minutes whenever possible. We're going to do a quick, step-by-step breakdown of whatever that concept is. And then we're going to use lots of examples to illustrate the concept. And then, again, we feed that into the interactive practice afterwards. So that's the legal writing side. Let's just jump really quick. And I'm not going to click through all this stuff because you kind of got a sense of what things look like. But on the legal research side, what do we cover? So all these foundational topics, case briefing, different types of authorities, secondary sources, citators, headnotes, really all those fundamental research topics that folks need. Your research plan and process, pretty extensive training on search terms, advanced, all different sorts of advanced and kind of practice-based research ideas, a number of simulations where folks are going to have to go carry out different research tasks. Citations are a very popular area for us. We've got a number of different interactives and practices for this. So we have that document-based approach again, where students tend to love this because they can just kind of click on whatever type of citation they're trying to work on and get that broken down kind of step-by-step. Click on one of these. And so they can pull that citation up and then click on the part of the citation, and it's going to zoom in just to that part and give them that step-by-step guidance about what they should be doing. And then just an enormous amount of practice for the citations. We do also have some state-specific citation practice coming out. I think we already have like California and New York. And so we'll be looking to add those into these resources pretty soon. So if the state-specific stuff is interesting to you, we do have those as well. And then beyond citations and all those other research topics, we have the Westlaw primer and lawsuit lifecycle resources. So this is going to go through kind of all that foundational legal knowledge, levels of court, different types of court, e-filing, how that whole process unfolds so that students can actually have that big picture, that practical picture of what happens to their legal writing, all the major stages of a lawsuit, key differences in the criminal system. And then we have a number of resources on working with authorities. A couple other things I'll throw out really quick. At the end of each course, we have a number of optional materials. So for example, on the legal writing course side, we've got a ton of great training on transactional drafting and practice. That's been a popular request, so we included that, including the ability to walk through a contract and have every part of the contract broken down with narration. And this is another interactive type, which is called our walkthrough. If you wanted to bring in some transactional stuff into your classroom, we also have our legal document repository that's included here. And this is going to include tons of walkthroughs of different document types like client letters and emails, etc., discovery documents, as well as a pretty good chunk of practical, curated documents, like everything from a motion to dismiss, motion to stay. You can see all these practical documents. What we try to do is just put together all the most common real-life documents that students might want to be familiar with, that you may want to make them familiar with. And we've curated them. We've added in these kind of summary pages, and then they can actually look through the real document and get exposed to it. The last thing I'll mention on the platform, and then I've been word vomiting at you a lot if you have questions and thoughts, but you are able to have your students get certificates of completion for any portion of the courses. So for an example, if you just want students to work through the legal writing mechanics and grammar topics, they can take an assessment just based on that. If you want them to work through kind of the style legal writing stuff, you can have them get a certificate and do assessments based on that. Or if you want to have them work through the whole path, then again, you can have them go through assessments and get certificates for that. So assessments are a big part of the platform. All the practice that your students do are also possible assessments. And if you wanted access to all of that data, all of the responses and all of that kind of stuff, we can definitely provide that to professors as well. I'd say probably 2/3 of folks don't want all the granular kind of practice data when students jump into these practices. I think somewhat we want to know the students are doing them and taking them seriously. I will say, the students sometimes respond better if they feel like it's their practice place, right? And they're not going to be harshly graded about their responses. And so it's popular to kind of have the real assessments be the assessments we've built as opposed to using every individual practice, but we can set it up in whatever way is most helpful. Last thing I'll throw out there is we have this demo area, and you are more than welcome to hop on and make a demo account as a professor. And it's a really simple, smooth process. Once you have this link, we have a nice little video that breaks down the whole program here. If you use this link, it's just going to ask for your name and email. As long as you're using an institutional email at your law school, it's going to unlock, and you'll be able to jump around these courses at your leisure. And with that, I think I probably word vomited at you all plenty. I will mention a really important part of our philosophy is getting feedback from professors and students. So another thing that we love is every week we get feedback from professor or students about, we love this training or this chapter or whatever, but we would love to see some more training on XYZ. And so we're always very receptive to partnering with professors if there are certain topics that you would really like to see that aren't covered in the Aspen program, or if there are topics where you just would really love more practice. Last week we had a professor say, hey, I really like the point heading practice, but it was pretty short. Are we going to get some more practice? We have a really awesome, I'm super proud of our content creation team. And we have a queue of, upcoming new modules, practices, videos, etc. And so we love prioritizing that stuff based on what professors would like to see. So always very open to feedback. And so with that, do folks have any questions, thoughts that we can answer?
Thank you so much for that. So thank you so much for your presentation. At this time, we'll do some Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type away in the chat. With that, I will start with this one question I have, which is, what sort of support will professors have using this resource?
Yeah, so great question. A couple types of support. So of course, technical support, right? So if there's ever any issues a professor has or a student has with accessing materials, finding things, etc., our customer support team is extremely responsive. Usually we have an hour response time or less. And so always there for that. And then also just on, deployment, right? Using the materials. So if you have questions, how have other professors, incorporated these modules in their syllabus or on Canvas, or, what are the most popular lessons for, a first semester LRW course versus a second semester. Our team is always happy to support with that as well. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Do students already have access to Write.law through Westlaw?
Great question. Yeah, we get this one quite often. So we do have a partnership with Westlaw, with Thomson Reuters, and we're very excited to support students through that. Our partnership with Westlaw, which would make sense, does not cover legal writing and research. It is solely practice skills and technology. So the modules that are available through Westlaw, through the Knowledge Center, all that kind of good stuff, cover topics like negotiation skills, first day at your law firm, job practices and skills, a wide variety of legal tech, so e-discovery and things like that. Very, very different from the program that we work on with Aspen. The other piece with Westlaw is those are entirely just a video library. We make those available to support students because we know those topics are really helpful for students, but it does not include any access to platforms. So there's no practice. Setting aside, we don't do legal writing and research with them. there's no, all of these other things that are really important to our model are not available to us as well.
Great. Well, I don't see any other, spoke too soon. Can you customize the classes to reorder or remove content?
Great question. Yeah, so I mean, we definitely do that for professors quite often. I mean, the Aspen programs are kind of pre-built. If a professor does want that customization, we can do it. It would require, though, a couple extra steps that we'd have to work out, in the sense of when your students get just kind of the code and go sign up, they're going to get access to those courses. So it would require an extra step of, we would have to set up a custom course, enroll your students in that, and get it going that way. So yes, it's definitely something we can support, but it's not going to be automated just based on the way that we are bundling these courses with books.
All right. Next one is, I teach a fall 2L course for students who didn't perform well in their first year legal writing courses or have low GPAs. How could you use this program in that kind of course?
I mean, wonderful question. I mean, that's a very popular way that both institutions often use it. Law schools as a whole will use our resources, as well as professors. So my main suggestion is, look, what we've created is a really useful standalone course on legal writing. And so we've seen lots of success with academic success programs, administrations, etc., using the entire legal writing course and having students work through it. It's going to give them tons of practice, tons of resources on kind of all of the major pitfalls that they might run into. And, back to that question earlier about non-native speakers, same kind of idea. Having all those practices and those resources to return to rewatch, students can go back, it'll save their progress, and re-practice things, see their answers, all that kind of good stuff. That is a big part of the value that we bring. So for your use in particular, I probably would suggest just giving them access to that whole course and having them work through it. There's nothing covered in these courses that are super advanced. We know that LRW professors generally, right, they're doing all of that really advanced stuff, but all the foundational things, where did my fact section go in my document, to like all the grammar and mechanics stuff that I recently briefly touched on. Students are going to get tons of practice and materials for those things.
Great. I do not see any more questions at this time. I will pass it back to you for any sort of final thoughts.
Yeah, just thank you all so much for coming in and listening about the work we're doing with Aspen and with law professors and law schools. Please, if you have any questions, I know all of our classes are very unique to us, and our interests and needs and all that kind of stuff are very unique to us. So if you have any questions, even just bouncing around ideas for incorporating other e-learning or asynchronous materials or what have you, please never hesitate to reach out to me. I am, first and foremost, still a law professor, and so I love hearing from people in our community if I can help with this stuff at all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you all for attending. Today's webinar has now ended. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Take care, everyone.